Is everybody on? Is it okay? All right, so what I did is I took some sample sentences from student responses. My job as your English teacher this year is to not only prep you for the EOC, obviously, but more importantly for me, because I've taught juniors forever, my entire career, I know what you need for writing next year, and I want to make sure that you are ready for that, especially as you start taking these computer entrance exams of the SAT and the ACT. So we're going to keep working on revision. How can you continue to improve your writing? So the first thing we're going to work on today is elevating your language. I do not want to see from you anymore. You are high school freshmen and sophomores who are in an honors class. You have some good vocabulary. We have to use it. I do not want to see any form of to use or to show. Eliminate it. Now, those of you who are face to face today, last week we brainstormed some list of words you could use instead. So don't want to see use, uses, using, used, show, shows, showing, or showed. You have some really strong vocabulary you can use instead of that. So I have an example. Here is an original sentence from a student. I literally copied and pasted. Another problem I saw in your constructed responses, the final copies last week, is some of you didn't proofread before you submitted. Please make sure you proofread. So I have some other areas in red that also needed to be corrected. So the original sentence was, Cisneros uses language to create Esperanza's attitude of hope and to motivate her, with multiple phrases throughout their chapter. So here's how I revise the sentence and I take out uses. So first of all, I put what they had at the end, at the beginning, just to help with the transition and it sounds less awkward. Throughout the chapter, Cisneros' language creates. All I did was take out uses, put language creates. Creates is a very active verb, so use that one. Esperanza's, I corrected the punctuation here. Attitude of hope and motivation. We'll study this a little bit more, but the reason I changed this from to motivate her to motivation, there's something called parallel structure when you're making a list. You have to keep all of the parts of the list in the same part of speech. And we'll practice with that more later. So original sentence, revised sentence. So if you go to the next slide, this is your try, okay? Eliminate to show. The imagery shows how Esperanza was only looking at the negative in the trees. This is a student one. I want you in your copy to type how you would revise that. Okay, so we're going to pause here for a moment. How can we take out shows? The words that we changed, you wanted to put it in red. That would be very helpful. So someone in class just asked the words that you changed, put them in red. That'll be helpful. You to work on. Okay. So next, quote integration. Many students were integrating their quotes with Cisneros says, Cisneros wrote, this quote says, and the quote itself wasn't speaking. So we're going to work on integrating quotes better. So the original sentence I took from a student paragraph was, this is shown most clearly when she describes the roots as violent and ferocious. I actually liked this, which is why I put it in as the model we're going to work with. You don't have to use an entire sentence, people. You can choose if you want to, singular words or phrases from the sentence. You don't have to use the entire complete sentence. But notice we still have a problem with shown here. Cisneros clearly illustrates this realism. I am as guilty of this as any of you, so I'm not saying I'm perfect. But when you say this, it's not specific enough. So where I got the realism from was I went back to the previous sentence in that paragraph, which obviously you don't have. But Cisneros clearly illustrates this realism when she describes the roots as violent and ferocious. Notice your period goes inside the quotation marks when you're dealing with quotes in literary analysis. Okay? Again, you don't have to use an entire sentence. So now you try. I've actually given you two sentences here. I want you to combine it into one good, concise sentence with strong quote integration. So the point that this student is trying to make is that Esperanza feels out of place, is what I believe the writer meant to say. So, do you have to use the whole sentence? Could you just use part of it? But how can you get this idea and this quote and take out Esperanza says? So I'm going to pause for a minute and give you a few moments to work on that.